It all started as a normal evening on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. The studio lights bathed the stage in a warm glow, and the audience smiled at the host's jokes at the beginning of the show. Opposite him sat Johnny Depp, the guest of the evening. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his legs, and tapped his fingers lightly on the armrest. His hair was a chaotic cascade, with several strands falling over his face. The audience burst into applause when he entered, and now sat quietly, waiting for the conversation to begin. But they had no idea that this evening would end with the biggest scandal of the year. Before we get to the beginning of this scandal, I ask you to subscribe to my channel. It motivates me to make even better videos, and now let us proceed to the story. "Johnny, so good to have you back," Jimmy said, leaning forward, his smile widening. "You always bring that magic here. Tell us, how's the new movie? Pirates still your life?" Depp nodded, sliding off his sunglasses slowly, as if unveiling a secret. His eyes were tired but held a spark. "Yeah, Jimmy. Pirates is like an old tattoo. Hurts to get, but you can't imagine yourself without it. You? Still playing those games with your guests?" The audience laughed. Jimmy caught the laugh, rubbing his hands together. "Oh, yeah. We've got something special planned for you tonight. But first, your style. You always look like you just stepped off a ship. Part of the image?" Depp smiled, but the corners of his mouth twitched faintly. He picked up the glass of water on the table, took a sip. The water was cold, condensation dripping down the glass. "Image? That's just me, Jimmy. I don't play a role off screen. You? That smile of yours role or real?" A pause. Jimmy blinked but recovered fast, laughing. "Ha, good one. It's real when I've got guests like you. Tell us about your latest project. Heard you're doing something indie. Back to your roots?" Depp set the glass down, fingers lingering on the table, tapping softly. The camera zoomed in, catching the glint in his eyes. "Roots? Yeah, Jimmy. Sometimes you gotta go back to see where you're headed. You? How long you been sitting here? 10 years? 15? That spotlight ever tire you?" The audience murmured. Jimmy adjusted his tie, his smile holding but his eyes narrowing for a split second. "Never tired, 'cause I love it. Like you love acting. But let's talk you. Your life's like a movie. Scandals, wins. How do you keep the balance?" Depp leaned forward, his voice quieter. "Balance? That's an illusion, Jimmy. Like your show looks fun, but backstage, who knows? You don't show at all, do you?" Jimmy nodded, holding his gaze. "Course not. But the audience loves the truth. Tell us about your home. You're in Europe now? Why not America?" Depp's jaw tightened, but he smiled. "Europe. It's quieter. Fewer cameras. Here's like your studio. Everything's on display." A pause. The audience hushed. Jimmy picked up his coffee mug, took a sip. The coffee steamed, curling like cigarette smoke. "Got it. But America's freedom. You've always talked about that." Depp glanced at the camera, as if addressing someone off stage. "Freedom? That word's real popular these days, isn't it? But freedom's not what's on TV." Jimmy grinned wider, though his fingers gripped his pen. "Ha, deep. Let's talk fans. They love you for your truth. Like in your roles, always that extra layer." Depp nodded slowly. "Truth. Yeah, Jimmy. But truth hurts. You know that. How many guests you had who regretted coming?" The audience laughed nervously. Jimmy leaned in, his voice softer. "No regrets here. It's a show. Entertainment. But you're an icon. Tell us about the tough stuff. Your career's like the American dream." Depp sighed, his eyes darkening. "Dream? Sometimes a nightmare. But you don't ask about that, do you? Just the shine. A pause. The camera zoomed on Jimmy's face. He adjusted his mic, voice still upbeat. The shine's what people want. But let's go deeper. Your life in the press. How do you handle the rumors? Depp slipped his sunglasses back on, as if retreating. Rumors? They're like your jokes, Jimmy. Sometimes funny, sometimes not. Jimmy laughed. But it was brief. Well said. But seriously, you've been through a lot. Court, the press. Made you stronger? Depp took off the sunglasses again, his gaze sharper. Stronger? Maybe. Question is, why you asking? For the ratings? The audience whispered. Jimmy raised his hands, smiling. For the viewers. They care. Depp nodded, his voice quieter, laced with sarcasm. Care? Yeah, like the press cared. Tell me, Jimmy, you'd share your pain on camera? A pause. Jimmy swallowed, his smile holding but his eyes flickering. Me? This show's about the guests. But let's talk you. Your ex. That's all in the past? Depp gripped the armrest, knuckles whitening. The past? Doesn't pass when everyone keeps reminding you. Jimmy leaned in, his voice soft but pressing. I get it. But you won. That's inspiring. Depp looked aside, at the audience, then back. Won? It's not a game, Jimmy. It's life. A pause. The camera breathed, like a third presence. Jimmy took a moment, shuffled papers on his desk. All right, let's switch gears. Your hobbies. Music? You still playing with the band? Depp smiled, but it was thin, like a blade. Music's an escape. From questions like yours. The audience chuckled softly. Jimmy nodded, but his posture shifted, shoulders tense. Ha, clever. But the audience wants the real Johnny. Depp leaned forward, his voice low. The real me? You sure you want that? A pause. Jimmy blinked. Of course. It's the show. Depp sighed, his eyes narrowing. Fine. Ask about the real stuff. The pain, the lies. Not the pirates. Jimmy paused, then smiled. Okay. The trial. What was it like, standing in front of the world? Depp's jaw clenched, his voice sharper. Standing? It's not standing, Jimmy. It's being crucified. You? Could you handle it? The audience fell silent. Jimmy sipped his water, his hand trembling slightly. It's not about me. But you came out on top. Depp laughed, short and humorless. On top? Winning's when they forget. But you keep digging. A pause. The camera closed in. Jimmy adjusted his tie again. It's the show, Johnny. People want to hear. Depp looked straight into the camera. They want to hear? Or you do? Jimmy froze for a beat, then smiled. Let's talk future. New roles? Depp leaned back, but the tension hung in the air. Future. Depends on the past you're dragging up. A pause. The audience whispered. Jimmy took a deep breath. All right, Johnny. What makes you vulnerable? Depp's eyes darkened, locking onto him. Vulnerable? Questions like yours. They cut. A pause. Jimmy nodded, his voice quiet. Got it. But it's part of the job. Depp's fist clenched under the table. The job? It's a game with nerves. The audience stilled. Jimmy smiled, but the energy had shifted. Ha, drama. Let's talk family. Your daughter, she proud of you? Depp leaned forward sharply, his voice ice cold. Family? Don't touch that, Jimmy. That's not for your show. A pause. Silence filled the studio. The camera froze. The audience held its breath. Jimmy blinked, his smile fading for a moment. Something had cracked. The silence stretched, thick as fog under the studio lights. Jimmy's hand hovered over his coffee mug, fingers frozen mid-reach. The audience shifted in their seats, a collective intake of breath hanging in the air. Depp's eyes bored into Jimmy's, unblinking, the spark from earlier now a flicker of something sharper, anger, maybe, or exhaustion finally cracking through. Jimmy cleared his throat, his voice steady but laced with caution. Johnny, I didn't mean to. You did, Depp cut in, his tone low, like a rumble before thunder. He leaned back, but his body was coiled, fingers digging into the armrest. The camera caught it all, zooming subtly on his whitening knuckles. You always mean to. That's the game here. Poke until something breaks. The audience murmured, a wave of unease rippling through. Jimmy glanced at the prompter off stage, then back, his smile returning like a mask slipping into place. It's not a game. We're just talking. People admire how you've protected your family through everything. Depp's laugh was sharp, echoing in the quiet studio. Admire? Or feed on it? He shifted forward. Voice rising just enough to cut through the hum of the lights. You sit there, all smiles, asking about my daughter like it's casual chat. But it's not. It's bait. A pause. Jimmy's eyes flicked to the control booth, invisible to the viewers at home but palpable in the room. The microphone picked up the faint click of his pen against the desk. Bait? Come on, Johnny. We're on the same side. You've been through hell, the trial, the headlines. Sharing that strength, it helps others. Depp's gaze hardened, the sunglasses now dangling from his hand like a forgotten prop. Strength? You call it strength when they drag your name through the mud, accuse you of things you'd never do? His words tumbled faster, the control slipping. I stood in that courtroom, cameras everywhere, just like here. And for what? Ratings? Stories? The audience was silent now, no laughter, just wide eyes. Jimmy nodded slowly, his voice calm, probing. Exactly. You fought back. Won. That's why people tune in, to see the real fight. Real? Depp stood halfway, then sat back, as if catching himself. His voice cracked, raw. You want real? Fine. The trial wasn't a win. It was survival. Every lie they printed, every twist, they weren't after truth. They were after blood. And you? You're part of it. This show, these questions, it's the same circus. Jimmy leaned in, undeterred, his tone gentle but insistent. But you came out truthful. That's power. Depp shook his head, a bitter smile twisting his lips. Truthful? Truth needs no PR, Jimmy. But here we are, spinning it under these lights. He gestured at the cameras, the red lights blinking like watchful eyes. You ask about family to humanize me, right? Make me relatable. But it's control. You control the narrative. A longer pause. The studio felt smaller, the air heavier. Jimmy sipped his water, buying time, his hand steady now. Control? This is your platform, Johnny. Say what you need. Depp's eyes narrowed, the floodgates opening. What I need? To be left alone. But note you dig into the scandals, like it's entertainment. She accused me, the world believed her. I proved it wrong, but the stain stays. And you? You smile and ask for more. The audience gasped softly. Jimmy's face remained composed, but his knuckles whitened on the mug. I ask because it's inspiring. How you reclaimed your life. Reclaimed? Depp's voice rose, echoing off the set walls. You think it's over? Every interview like this reopens it. The pain, the loss. My kids read this crap. And for what, your laughs? Your applause? Jimmy paused, then pressed. Then why come on? Why share at all? Depp froze, then leaned forward, voice a whisper that carried. Because if I don't, they win. The liars, the media. But tonight? I'm done playing. He stood fully now, the microphone still clipped to his jacket, capturing every breath. The control room must have buzzed, producers scrambling, but on air, it was just them. Jimmy rose slightly, hand extended. Johnny, wait. Let's talk it out. No. Depp unclipped the mic, dropping it on the desk with a thud. The sound reverberated, sharp as a slap. This isn't talk. It's interrogation. The audience held its collective breath. Light seemed brighter, harsher, casting long shadows. Jimmy's smile faltered completely, his voice urgent. Come on, man. Sit. We can cut to commercial. Depp turned toward the exit, pausing at the edge of the stage. Cut? That's your answer? Always control. He looked back, eyes meeting Jimmy's one last time. Thanks for the invite. But next time? Ask about the art, not the scars. He walked off, the camera following until he vanished behind the curtains. The audience erupted in whispers, then applause, uncertain, scattered. Jimmy stood there, alone under the lights, forcing a chuckle. Well, folks, that's Johnny Depp for you, always unpredictable. We'll be right back. The feed cut to commercial, but the studio buzzed. Off air, Jimmy sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. Producers rushed in, voices overlapping. We can edit that. Ratings gold. But Jimmy waved them off, staring at the empty seat. In the green room, Depp grabbed his coat, ignoring the handler's questions. His phone buzzed already, texts from friends, alerts pinging. He stepped out into the New York night, the cool air a relief after the sterile heat. By morning, the clip went viral. Headlines screamed, Depp storms off Fallon, explosive rant on trial trauma. X lit up, hashtags trending, hashtag Depp unfiltered, hashtag Fallon fail. Fans rallied, finally, someone calls out the media circus. Critics pounced, unprofessional meltdown or raw truth? Late-night rivals joked about it on their shows, memes flooding feeds, Depp's mic drop superimposed on everything from pirate ships to courtrooms. Jimmy issued a statement, great chat with a legend. Respect his passion. But whispers in industry circles hinted at tension, guests wary now, producers rethinking questions. Depp stayed silent, retreating to his European quiet. Weeks later, in an indie interview, he mentioned it offhand, sometimes you have to walk to stand. The world moved on, but the echo lingered, a reminder that under the lights, control was fragile. When the spotlights dimmed that night, all that remained was the whisper of truth, unspoken but heard.